Hello and welcome to our monthly live stream Science on the 7th. This is our fourth and final live stream for 2022. And this is a space where we bring in experts from around the world to talk about air pollution and health. And today I'm particularly excited to be welcoming two absolutely wonderful guests. First up, I would like to invite Dr. Maria Naira, who is the Director of Environment, Climate Change, and Health at the World Health Organization. She is joining us live from the headquarters right now and is in the middle of a busy work week. So, welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining us. I'm also very happy to be welcoming Ms. Jane Burston, who is the founder and executive director of Clean Air Fund, a global philanthropy that's tackling air pollution in countries around the world. Welcome, Jane.
Hi there.
Great. So we are going to use the next few minutes to talk a little bit about how and where we're making progress on air pollution, what some of our upcoming priorities need to be. But I think it'll be difficult for me to start this conversation without acknowledging that this month or this week is really the 70th anniversary of the London smog episode that happened in 1952, a catastrophic event and a lot of casualties as a result of very high air pollution exposures, but also a catalyst for change. It led to the Clean Air Act in the UK and similar action in countries around the world. At the moment, the UK is also trying to understand and sort of establish its new air quality standards. There's a private member's bill being commonly referred to as Ella's Law that is going through Parliament in some form. I'm wondering, Jane, if I can start with you on just, what you think the progresses that we've made in the 70 years since that episode and where we are headed with some of the upcoming policy developments.
Well, thanks, Pallavi. Yeah, like you say, there's a huge health and human toll of the Great Smog. We've been seeing it all over the news over the last few days because the anniversary started on Monday, and there were 4,000 people that died at the time, and then another 8,000 people that are thought to have died in the weeks and months afterwards. So it was really an event that made the government of the time sit up and notice, and, like you say, led to the Clean Air Act, which was leading for its time. I think the government is thinking about whether or not we want to carry on being leaders. At the moment, there's a space ahead of Christmas where they're going to set the new ambient air quality standards. And I think there's an opportunity for them to go further than they're proposing at the moment. In the consultation that DEFRA put out, they're considering meeting the old WHO guideline limits by 2040. And there's evidence out there from Imperial College that actually it's affordable and feasible to meet those limits by 2030. So I think we could go quite a bit faster. You mentioned Ella's Law as well, and that's a private member's bill that actually got voted top in the House of Lords and then passed through the House of Lords, is being considered in the Commons at the minute. And that would establish clean air as a basic human right and require the WHO guidelines, the new ones, to be met even sooner than researchers have looked into. So we'll see, so it's all happening at the moment. We'll see where it goes. I think one thing that's encouraging is the amount of public awareness of air quality now, a lot because of this tireless campaigning of Ella's mum, Rosamond Adu Kissy Deborah, that then the Great Smog becomes something that news journalists want to talk about, because air pollution is already something that's being talked about a lot in the public domain.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we see that the London smog event was sort of the first one, but even now we continue to see episodes that are similar in nature. Dark gray skies, and I think we have a couple of images looking back at what the streets in London looked like in 1952 and what some cities continue to look like today. Even in 2021, we have an image from Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan, covered in a layer of heavy pollution. You mentioned the WHO guidelines a couple of times, Jane, and Maria. I would like to hear your thoughts now. as someone who's been advocating for clean air for many years, and with the new WHO guidelines, where you see progress being made already by countries and regions, and what we should be looking at ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Pallavi. Sometimes we need to ask ourselves whether we are learning from history or not. I mean, clearly what's happened 70 years ago was extraordinary and has created this momentum for the Cleaner Act, and certainly positive things happen after that. But the second picture you show us today, you could have plenty of pictures like that at the moment in many, many cities. A few minutes before this conversation, I received the information that in Pakistan, they are closing certain schools because they don't want the kids to be exposed to the incredibly high levels of air pollution. I mean, this is not the way to protect them. This is a very temporary ad hoc measure. The real protection of those children will be to make sure that the air they are breathing was compatible with human life and a normal human right to breathe clean air. And it's not the case in many places around the world. And let me put on the table the horrible number that we need to repeat until everybody is very conscious of the drama here. 7 million premature deaths are still occurring every year. Every year, 7 million premature deaths caused by exposure to air pollution. And this is the global situation. Have been improved, certainly. I mean, when you look at the situation in European countries, for instance, and how was the situation years ago and how it is now, of course, we have improved in several parts of the world. But globally, we are not certainly obtaining the results that will be required looking at the magnitude of the problem we are facing. So we need to keep with the great advocacy that these days is happening in UK. Ella's law will be for us a great achievement because we will use it not only in UK, but globally to champion others. Legislation can be a big push for us. And of course, we need to make sure that WHO new air quality guidelines are very much on the top of the agenda of any leader, any government, any mayor, making sure that those are the standards they need to reach, because those are the ones that will allow us to reduce the mortality by air pollution, reduce the diseases caused by air pollution, which are chronic, and reduce as well the cost that this is generating for the society, since sometimes the economic arguments are important as well. So a good mission and a goal standard to go as far as possible on making sure that people will breathe air that is not killing them. I think this is something so basic that we cannot expect, breathing air that is not killing us, at least.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think, breathing air that's not killing us. And for many people, as you said, Maria, especially the winter season, which was, underway for many countries right now, is the time when we see those horrible air pollution numbers. We see schools getting shut down, as you just mentioned in Pakistan, also in other places, construction sites and industries shut down. So there's a huge human health cost to this and a huge economic cost to this. And staying a bit on where we are making progress, you both were at the recent COP27 meeting. This is an annual gathering to talk about climate change and what countries are doing to address it. And this is where health is now starting to get acknowledged. Air pollution is starting to get acknowledged as important parts of the climate change conversation. And I'm wondering, since both of you have been at multiple COPs now, how you see we are progressing in bringing in air quality and health as a factor in climate change discussion, and our country starting to use air quality action as a lever to address climate change already. Jane, I'll maybe start with you and then go to Maria.
Yeah, I think that they are. We've started to see countries, small number at the moment, but some countries put air quality and the health benefits of climate action in their NDCs. And health was definitely a big focus for people attending the COP. After the WHO managed to get a health pavilion for the first time last year, they had another one this year with these very beautiful lungs that were like a sculpture of tree roots and lungs on the stage. And there were huge numbers of health and climate events outside of the WHO pavilion as well. So lots of participation. I think it enabled the kind of politicians and negotiators to hear real life stories of how climate action can help people. So we heard a lot from young people at the youth pavilion about their suffering with asthma and what brought them into climate action. We heard from doctors like Dr. Arvind Kumar, who's a lung surgeon who lives in Delhi, who talks about how many of the people coming to him for surgery now or with advanced lung cancer have never smoked, and they've just been breathing polluted air their whole lives. And from parents like Bavreen Kandari, whose kids had asthma. So I think these real life stories really do hit home with the negotiators. And certainly every time I passed by the WHO pavilion, it was a packed audience listening to the panels in there.
Yeah. I think we have an image of the WHO pavilion that we can pull up, and Maria, definitely want to hear your thoughts too about how the conversations went. And this image on the left is one of the events in motion during the COP. But Maria, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Jane described it very nice. This sculpture, I think it was really a big visual for reminding everyone, and this was the intention, reminding everyone that COP is about everything, but most importantly, is about human health as well. And this is probably an argument that we need to keep repeating, because personally, I think will be the one that will change and things and will create an exponential reaction and action, because when you see all of those medical students that Jane was describing, all of those health professionals, all of the motivation generating around human health, I think this is the one that will create the engine now for more action. The good thing here, because we need to talk in positive a little bit, is that climate action equal health action. So the more you do on implementing the Paris Treaty and on implementing all the resolutions and the agreements under COP, the more you will be protecting people's health. And we can quantify that for you, which is a political argument. I think our politicians might need the quantification of those health benefits and saying, okay, if you are the mayor of London or if you are the mayor of Islamabad, please be aware that if you put in place a measure to reduce, to tackle the causes of climate change, and therefore you will obtain a reduction on the air pollution, look at the health benefits that you will obtain. More we document and quantify those health benefits, more people will be motivated and stimulated. And these days, that we need some positive messages as well for people. Otherwise, all they hear is about very negative news, including the football yesterday for Spaniards, by the way. Anyway, people want to hear something positive. So the positive thing is, the more you do to tackle the causes of climate change and air pollution, the more you will be protecting people's health, the more you will be reducing mortality, the more you will be reducing as well the bill that you are paying now in terms of finance for how our health systems are paying already. But most importantly, who is really paying the cost of climate change are our lungs and the rest of our body.
Yeah. And I would add as well I very much second those points about the economic benefits, because there's these huge costs to the public health systems in all of these countries and around the world. But there's also a massive cost to businesses and individuals because of the drops in productivity. If you're sick and you can't go to work, well, that costs the economy quite a lot of money, and it costs you your wages if depending on your cover. So like we saw a study a couple of years ago from Dalberg in India, for example, that said that the cost of pollution to businesses, not the health system, but businesses, is 95 billion a year, which is about 3% of Indian GDP. A similar study was done in the UK by the Confederation of British Industry, looking at if the UK met the WHO targets at the time, just that what would the productivity benefit of that drop in pollution be? And it was about 1.6 billion sterling every year as soon as the WHO target was met. So there are huge economic costs to continuing to pollute, and huge economic benefits to stopping it as soon as we can, as well as the health benefits.
Yeah, I think, those are all really important points, and especially the point about making sure that we're also getting the positive stories out. The headlines are often so many million deaths or people's health getting impacted, which, as I can say from my experience, a lot of my friends and family are like, well, it's all doom and gloom. Can you tell me something that's actually improving? Or how improvements or new policy changes will bring health benefits and changes to air quality. And I think one example that we talk about a little bit, but could actually spend a little bit more time highlighting how that has been successful, is the case of household air pollution. Over the years, as countries have started expanding access to clean energy, people are using less polluting fuels like wood or charcoal. And despite those efforts, we've seen that nearly 2 million or more deaths are still linked to this household air pollution. However, as you mentioned, Jane, a lot of countries are beginning to think about that aspect of, emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, climate emissions, air pollution emissions, and bringing those into their climate change action plans and adaptation plans. And I'm wondering if, maybe Maria, I'll go to you first, since WHO also does a lot of work around clean cooking and ensuring that people have access to cleaner fuels. How can we begin to highlight and promote actions that bring results at the intersection of improved air quality, improved health, in this particular case, also improved quality of life, especially for the women who end up, sort of at the receiving end of this type of pollution much more, and the aspect of energy transition and the action on climate that we also need to be undertaking at a much rapid pace.
It was very interesting. I had very recently the opportunity to have a conversation with a big group of professionals dealing with gender issues. And I told them, I have something very easy for you, something that will have an enormous contribution to advance the gender agenda. I say, okay, tell us. I said, well, make sure that you increase and accelerate access to clean fuels at the household level. You will see immediately the benefit of those girls that are not going to the school now, going to school, because now they cannot afford it. They need to spend 3-4 hours a day collecting something to cook your food or to have something to heat your place, and then you have coal or you have wood or whatever is available, and then you need to spend time as well collecting water. So obviously you don't go to school. Somebody has to stay at home to cook and to prepare the moment you reduce those 4 hours and the girls will start to go to school, you will see an incredible contribution to gender, because this is the way you advance on education. So for us, it's a critical thing, definitely, not only for health purposes, for equity, come on, we are in the 21st century. How can you accept that you have half of the world population cooking or heating or lighting in their house like in the Stone Age? Not like 100 years ago, no, like in the Stone Age. I mean, with an open fire. This is unacceptable, and it's something that governments are starting to see, that this is an investment. You need to have people productive, and this is one of the ways. So for WHO, yes, access to clean fuels is fundamental. Essentially, what we are saying is this transition to clean, renewable sources of energy is one of the fundamental pillars for public health. As it was years ago, access to safe water and sanitation, Unfortunately, it is still the case for many countries around the world. But as essential as that is access to clean sources of energy. And we need to stop this nonsense of giving subsidies to fossil fuels and use that incredible amount of money that countries' governments are now using to provide subsidies to fossil fuels, to use it for renewable energy. And then the benefits could be immediate in all fronts: gender equity, health, economy, well-being, and name it, climate change, of course. So I don't know, when you have such a fantastic opportunity of obtaining benefits in such a big, broad range, why are we not taking this opportunity? That's the question I ask myself every day, and I'm afraid still don't have an answer.
Yeah, and Jane, I know that, as someone who also likes cycling, you're probably also concerned about, air quality and what you're breathing in sort of an everyday basis. But in terms of thinking about the action that we need on addressing air pollution, of course, we have the case of fossil fuels, as Maria just mentioned. We have the case of transportation and improving access to public transportation, etc. And your organization has also been trying to focus a lot of attention on getting governments and others to bring together sort of joined up action on climate and air quality. Could you speak a little bit to how you see that progressing and what types of actions are in that portfolio of possibilities for countries? And
Yes, absolutely, and actually, interestingly, one of the first times I really thought about the impact of air quality on my health was when I first moved to London, quite a number of years ago. I won't say how many; they will date me. But I lived in central London and was cycling to work and had one of those masks that everybody used to wear, and the filter at the end of the week was absolutely black. And it was kind of horrified me that this had been going into my lungs previously and did whenever I walked around. So that was the first time I was alerted that there was something going on that I hadn't ever thought about before. But yes, the push for joined up action across climate and air quality is really important, because although a lot of climate action is also air quality action, it's not always the case. And even where the climate action isn't harmful for health and air quality, there's a huge opportunity for prioritizing climate action that quite quickly reduces health harming air pollutants. We did a report earlier on in the year called the State of Global Air Quality Funding, and it looks into how much money goes into air pollution reductions from both philanthropy and from official donors. And it's really surprising how few donors of both kinds measure the overlaps between their climate funding and their health funding, and how little money goes to air quality in general. It was a tiny fraction, less than 1% of philanthropic funding. And for official donors, what we found was actually there was much more money going to projects that prolong fossil fuel use than go to air quality. In Africa, I think it was something like 36 times more money going to projects that prolong fossil fuel use than clean air projects. So we've clearly got our balance wrong, and we need to invest much more in the solutions. And I think one of your questions was, what are the best solutions? I had that very same question when we were starting out with the Clean Air Fund. And what I wanted to know was, if you were to draw a graph of health benefit and climate benefit on each axis, one on each axis, what would be in the top right-hand corner? What's the absolute best thing for both pollution reduction and climate? And we couldn't find it. So we commissioned it from Pure Earth, and that graph is amazing. It's still available online. I think there's a World Economic Forum blog where you can access it, called something like "What are the best interventions for health and climate?" And the stuff in that top right-hand corner was transitioning away from coal and transitioning away from fossil fuel use in vehicles. So electric private vehicles, electric public transport, reduced number of combustion engine vehicles overall. And the whole graph shows you basically which kinds of interventions fall where, and also how big the opportunity for each of those interventions is.
Fantastic. I think we'll try and share that graphic because I think it does capture the menu of options we have pretty well. And we have a question coming in from one of our listeners, Robin Hood 46, and I think both of us were thinking along the similar lines on the need for clean air action is a multi-step process. And my interest in that question was from the perspective of bringing together environment and health ministries closer. And Maria, I'm sure you've had that experience over the years. And then also on the other side, engaging doctors and the medical professionals who are often very trusted voices for their patients. And finding ways to integrate that knowledge and understanding on the health impacts of air pollution. Maria already emphasized on the big number we already know, 7 million deaths, a majority of those happening in low and middle income countries. Unfortunately, huge impacts on children. One of our reports found more than 200,000 deaths in infants within the first month of their life. Huge impacts. So I think Maria, I'll maybe start with you on, how do we bring together the Environment Agency and health agencies to take action on air pollution, and also as a medical professional, what your thoughts are on engaging the medical professionals and health practitioners in a more meaningful way, so that they can also be communicators about how air pollution affects our health.
Yeah, I will start with the second one. I mean, engaging the health professionals is one of the key actions that we are all moving on at the moment. We were describing first what we were doing at COP27. That was very symbolic. But in fact, the idea is to create a huge network of medical or health-related networks, making sure that we are all aligned around the same messages. We want more and more pediatricians talking about the fact that, okay, I know how to treat an asthma case, but I don't understand why I need to treat the same kid 3 times a month and then send it back to the street where the kid is breathing polluted air. So more and more pediatricians are raising their voices, similar for other type of medical professions, that we need to engage them and first be convinced that this is something that is related to public health. It's not just treating the disease, but it's influencing upstream what it needs to be done. So more and more this network is growing. More and more we see interest as well from the health professionals on different. There is nothing yet formal on the CV. On the curriculum of a medical school, for instance, or even a nurse's school, you will not have anything formal on telling you about climate change, on air pollution. Well, all the risk factors are always included, but not on how you can influence different policies and what will be the interventions. Therefore, WHO has developed a training course, a training package for health professionals about air quality, air pollution, what are the best interventions. So I hope that this training package will be as large implemented as possible. And of course, we are using meetings like the one we have here in WHO with all the representatives of WHO in the different countries, ministers of health, and we have many alliances with the ministers of environment. But in addition to that, now we are focusing very much as well on ministers of energy, because as discussed already, one of the best interventions will be to accelerate this transition to clean, renewable sources of energy. And therefore, this dialogue between ministers of health and ministers of energy is extremely important. And we are creating that dialogue. We have a platform where they discuss. This was very new. Normally, we don't discuss with ministers of energy, but now we see it as something fundamental. And again, more and more, we need to make sure that the health professionals who, as you rightly said, they are still at the top of the credibility by our citizens, they are empowered and they have those arguments very well define, and then they can influence, they can participate on meetings where I still remember years ago when you were inviting people from ministers of health to participate in a discussion about air pollution on a city. They will tell you, no, what I will be doing there. They don't see their place. Now things are changing, and more health professionals wanted to be involved in those discussions, and they have very powerful arguments to contribute to that discussion. But it's growing every day.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of momentum, and many doctors from different parts of the world. I think one of you mentioned Dr. Arvind Kumar from India. There's Dr. Alex Simichev in Bulgaria, who's been similarly a very vocal advocate for addressing air pollution in Bulgaria and in that region, and many other examples elsewhere. Jane, I think also in sort of response to this type of question on how we bring different agencies together and maybe expanding on that to say there's a role that the government is playing, then there's a role that the private sector and the civil society and the media are playing, and how you see that changing, and what how can we get these different sort of audiences and expert groups to work together towards our shared goal of clean air for all.
Yeah, I think collaboration across government departments on the topic of air quality is something huge that I haven't seen any country get right yet. I'd like to hear if there are good examples that we could look to replicate. There's some kind of glimmers of hope in the UK. They've set up a joint air quality unit across the Department for Transport and the Department for the Environment, and that's looking to implement clean air zones. So there's a kind of start there, but obviously health ministry should be very much involved, especially around raising awareness of air pollution, because like Maria says, doctors and health practitioners are the most trusted people in society, and it is a health message we need to get across, not to frighten people, but to help them protect their own health and see the damage that pollution is doing, and therefore support the policies and the politicians that want to do something about it. I think on the private sector, there is quite encouraging movement now, actually. I think the momentum behind the clean air movement is really growing very fast, and young people are always prioritizing climate action from their new employers, and so their employers are starting to hear about that. And so a private sector alliance for clean air was established for the first time at the COP last year, and 6 new businesses. So there's now got 16 businesses. 6 new businesses joined at the COP this year, and they are for those big multinational businesses like Mahindra, Wipro, IKEA, Google, Bloomberg, and many others are all now working on a methodology to measure their air pollution footprint that was published at the COP this year, and they're going to use that to baseline their pollutants and start to reduce them.
Great. I think we lost Maria, so hopefully she'll be back for a couple of minutes as we close. But some very clear messages from both of you, I think. And, we know the air pollution health impacts are huge. The 7 million number is definitely worth remembering. There's need for joint action on air pollution and climate, keeping health at the very center of any decisions we're making, and then ensuring that we're not just thinking about individual groups that are in decision making spaces, but also engaging the brighter breadth of organizations and individuals that can influence those decisions. Welcome back, Maria. No problem. This is our world now, so I think we're all pretty used to it. I was just saying that very clear messaging is coming from both of your, perspectives and feedback in terms of the huge health impacts, the need to continue to act, keeping health at the very center. And as we close, this is our final live stream for this year, and look forward to 2023 and continued engagement. Maybe I will request both of you to give us very short 30-second sort of views on what is your key message to people that are paying attention to this issue, and are there groups that need to hear it that we haven't reached yet? Maria, I'll go to you first, and then over to you, Jane.
What I will tell people is that anytime you breathe, and we breathe many, many times a day, think about what you are getting into your lungs. And once you think about, be aware what that might represent for your health. Other groups, I think moms, civil society, anyone who cares about our health, and those are the ones that need to put pressure on their politicians. And the last one, please use your vote properly. Make sure that you vote those who have a good program on protecting your health by giving you clean air.
Thank you. Jane?
Well, I think a message for governments and businesses and philanthropies is invest. We're not going to do this without more money going towards air pollution reduction. And it's a huge opportunity to secure health benefits and climate benefits at the same time. And then a message for all of the campaigners and health practitioners and leaders like Rosamund, who we talked about, and Maria, and yourself, Pallavi. I feel like that group doesn't always get the acknowledgement and support that they deserve. So a message for those would be stay determined, stay focused. Let's do this.
Fantastic. I think those are both really incredible, powerful messages, and we'll hope to continue working on this issue next year and many, many years beyond. I'll just end on the very hopeful note that yes, the problem is stark, and there's lots still to do, but we have achieved a lot of good things in the last decades, and hopefully we can all continue to work together and think of better ways to bring action and change faster. So, with that, I will thank Jane and Maria. Thank you so much again for joining us and for sharing your thoughts. We really appreciated your perspectives on this very important issue, and hope that we can continue this engagement in the years to come. And to all of you who are listening in, thank you again for joining us and for engaging with us. This will be our final live stream for 2022, where we will be back in 2023 with more ideas and more guests. So stay tuned. And a big thank you to our team at the Health Effects Institute who've made this live stream possible behind the scenes. Tom Shampoo, Alexis Vasquez, and Amy Andrini. This wouldn't have been possible without them. And happy holidays. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.